Hello, everyone. Bonjour, boozoo, sego. Whether you are here in person or joining us virtually, we are delighted to welcome you to this provincial convening of the arts. My name is Michael Murray, and I have the distinct pleasure of serving as CEO of the Ontario Arts Council, or OAC, as it's more frequently known. I am happy to be here today with you in the Nanji Family Auditorium in the beautiful Aga Khan Museum. I think you'll join me in thinking this is such a gorgeous and important place. It's a thrill to see so many of our supporters of our vibrant arts community here today, as well as share the stage with our honored guest, the Honorable Minister of Tourism, Culture and Gaming, Stan Cho, and Chair of the Ontario Arts Council Board of Directors, Simon Foster. Before we begin official remarks, I have some quick housekeeping. For those of you joining virtually, this event has simultaneous French-English translation. At the bottom of your screen, you'll find a globe button where you can choose to listen in English or French. You can also use this button to access ASL interpretation. Now I would like to take a few minutes to acknowledge the land where our event takes place. As we meet in both this physical and virtual space today, please take a moment to recognize the Indigenous past, present, and future of the location you are joining us from. The OAC's Toronto office, as well as the Aga Khan Museum, is located on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabeg, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. And just as we acknowledge the diversity of identities, contexts, experiences, and geographic locations of all those attending today's event, we also acknowledge the diversity of the First Peoples in the regions where we live and work. Ontario is now home to many diverse First Nations, and is home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13, signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Williams Treaties, signed with multiple Mississauga and Chippewa bands. And that Toronto is on the territory governed by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, whose guiding principle is of stewardship and keeping the peace. Everyone has an equal right to eat from the dish, but we all share the responsibility of keeping the dish clean and ensuring there must be something for others and future generations. I make this land acknowledgement to recognize not only the First Peoples of the territories where we are located, but also the responsibility that we have as inhabitants to understand our relationship to the land and our place within its history. For those working like us in the cultural sector, we're also invited to consider how we operate in relationship with Indigenous colleagues, artists, organizations, and other stakeholders we serve. The OAC is grateful to conduct our work as a guest in communities across the province. And today we are pleased to welcome you as guests as well. Today's gathering is an opportunity for us, artists, culture workers, individuals, and organizations to convene about the impact of Ontario's arts sector. As Ontario's core funder of the arts, we are constantly reminded how the arts mean so much to the day-to-day lives and collective health of Ontario communities. But we wanted to take this chance to remind everyone in the room and everyone out there and do more of that reminding. Les arts sont le reflet de qui nous sommes. Ils sont le tissu même et tissent ensemble nos diverses communautés. Ils nous inspirent, nous défient et fournissent une plateforme pour des voix qui pourraient autrement ne pas être entendu. L'importance des arts en Ontario ne peut être surestimée. The arts contribute significantly to Ontario's economy, enhance Ontario's quality of life, and foster connections between individuals and communities throughout our vast province. The organizations attending this event represent a variety of sizes, budgets, and resource capacities. Yet there are common circumstances for all arts organizations in the province. We can all benefit from having open discussions about the opportunities and challenges we are seeing. Mon espoir pour aujourd'hui est que nous prenions du recul pour voir l'impact incroyable du secteur des arts en Ontario et tracer la voie et suivre à travers la conversation continue. It's now my pleasure to introduce you to the chair of the Ontario Arts Council's Board of Directors. For me, a mentor, for everyone, a leader and an inspiration, Simon Foster. Appointed, yeah, he deserves it. Appointed to the board in 23 and named chair in 24, Simon brings a wealth of experience from both the business and arts sectors. He is an Ontario entrepreneur with a passion for the arts. He is a founder and CEO of Chatter Research, a leading customer feedback platform, and he previously served as Senior Vice President at Blue Ant Media. Simon co-founded the Framework Foundation, which promotes civic engagement among young Canadians and supports emerging artists through significant investments. As seen in his volunteer work, including past board member of Canada's National Ballet School, Simon is a passionate advocate for the arts, with a strong background in leadership and volunteerism. You did it once, but you can do it again. Please join me in welcoming Simon Foster to the stage.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Michael. Thanks also to my colleagues on the board at the OAC. They're past members of the OAC board here. Also, thanks to the extraordinarily talented OAC leadership team who are here, and to the incredible staff and volunteers at the Aga Khan Museum for hosting us today. I'm only 2 months into this gig, but have already had the opportunity to spend time and speak with many of the arts leaders here to understand and learn about the impact culturally and economically you are having in the communities you serve. But I have many more to learn from and hear from, and I look forward to engaging with each of you in those conversations to hear your stories. And I'll highlight just quickly 2 examples of stories that highlight the work that the OAC is doing and how meaningful it is to the prosperity of Ontario. The first is in Waterloo, an inspiring project for immigrant and refugee women called the X-Page Workshop, supported by the OAC. Over 12 weeks, participants crafted their personal stories with the help of professional editors, from identifying their personal narrative to refining those stories for performance and publication. And the project culminated in an incredible live performance where the women shared their original stories and their voices were further amplified through an online publication. These women were given the chance to step into the spotlight, not only as storytellers, but as the authors of their own experiences. And this initiative is, I think, a testament to the power of the arts to create connection and healing, and particularly for those who are often marginalized. And when I think about the OAC's mandate, which is to serve all Ontarians, it's projects like this that represent inclusivity and bridge building that are so powerful. And one more story from Sudbury. We recently witnessed the emergence of incredible space, the Yes Theatre Refectorial. This outdoor venue was conceived during the pandemic, and in less than 2 years, Yes Theatre managed to fundraise $3 million through overwhelming community support. Located in the heart of downtown, the space is much more than just a performance venue. It's a symbol of Sudbury's commitment to creativity and community gathering. It creates community pride, especially I think among young people in the area who see Sudbury as a hub of innovation and culture. And this creative placemaking not only certainly beautifies the city of Sudbury, but also builds lasting connections. It can reshape identity, proving that art can be a powerful force for economic and social renewal. I've shared 2 stories. I could share 3,000 because the Ontario Arts Council provides 3,000 grants every year to artists and arts organizations all across Ontario, from where we are here in Don Valley East to Kiiwetinoong in the far north of the province. Each project each grant creates a powerful effect that strengthens communities, drives creativity, builds lasting connections. And today, because we're here at the Aga Khan Museum, I'd like to highlight a particular group of grant recipients that deliver on OAC's priorities. And these organizations are what we call our Majors program. And I'll just tell you very quickly what our Majors program is about. The organizations who form that program meet a set of requirements. They range from minimum annual revenue to national and international impact and significance. These 12 organizations are major contributors to the economic impact of Ontario's arts sector. These organizations are represented by many here tonight, and they are Canada's National Ballet School, the Harbourfront Centre, the Shaw Festival, the Stratford Festival, the Canadian Opera Company, the National Ballet of Canada, Ottawa Blues Fest, the Royal Conservatory, the Toronto International Film Festival, and the Toronto Symphony Orchestra, and 2 new additions, the University of Toronto Press and the Aga Khan Museum. Deserving of the applause, the Aga Khan Museum celebrating its 10th anniversary, home to a growing permanent collection of 1,200 masterpieces, including manuscripts, paintings, ceramics, and textiles from the 9th to the 21st century. Through their innovative online and in-person programs, the museum reaches millions of people worldwide, generating intercultural dialogue and understanding through the arts. I'll say a quick word also just about the second new entrant into the majors category. The University of Toronto Press, UTP, founded in 1901, is Canada's leading academic publisher and one of the largest university presses in North America. A reputation for excellence from publishing influential authors, outstanding research, continued groundbreaking education, new scholarships, publishing 180 new scholarly books every year, providing also distribution services for dozens of other university presses. And much of their work also helps reach just about every corner of Ontario with books. A word about the majors' impact as a whole on Ontario. Over the next 5 years, they will have a total combined impact of 23 million audience members and visitors, 3.4 million arts education participants, $680 million in private sector revenue, and $480 million in artistic fees and salaries. We at the OAC have high expectations of organizations in this category to continue to be leaders in our province's arts community to benefit all Ontarians. The Aga Khan Museum, we know, will. Okay, everyone doesn't really want to hear from me. They want to hear from the minister. So it's my privilege to introduce Minister Cho, Ontario's Minister of Tourism, Culture and Gaming, and the MPP for the riding of Willowdale. I will say to everyone in this room and anyone watching the live stream, we at the OAC and the arts community are very fortunate to have this minister. He is an ally of the arts community. He is thoughtful, he is smart, and as many in this room have already experienced, he's engaged. He wants to engage with you directly to hear your impact stories. And I think, as you'll see, he's a believer in the opportunity that the arts sector represents in the province. Before this portfolio, the minister was Associate Minister of Transportation and Minister of Long-Term Care. And prior to his entry into politics, he worked in both automotive and real estate sectors, where he learned a lot about the diversity in Ontario as a strength. He also holds the distinction of being the first Canadian-born person of Korean descent to hold public office in Canada. Yes. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Minister Cho.
Wow, Simon, what an intro. Did my mom write that for you? That was very nice. Well, it's an honor to be here at the beautiful Aga Khan Museum this morning with all of you. And yes, as Simon mentioned, I have seen some of you before. It's great to see you again. I told my team I was going to do it, and I'm going to do it. They wrote this beautiful 12-page speech for me, which I'm not going to read, but I'll be happy to leave it right here on this podium for anyone who wants to see how well it is indeed written. It's so fitting that we're here in North York to talk about the importance of arts and culture in this province. I've been in the role for 5 months. I've been trying to travel as much as I can. That was sort of put on hold a month ago. I had a baby 3.5 weeks ago, our first, a baby daughter. Thank you. I got to tell you how nice that clap feels. I don't get applauded a lot at home for the job of being a father, so thank you very much for that. I was thinking on the way over here what I could talk about in the brief introductory remarks, because I want to save most of the time for the chat to get deep into the arts and culture discussion. But I thought it would be fitting, Simon, you shared 2 stories. I think I want to share 2 stories as well. The first one actually happened October 8th, 2022, so almost 2 years ago to the day. I'm a big Blue Jays fan. It's tough to be a Blue Jays fan these days. But October 8th, 2022 was a wild card playoff game. And we were winning 8-1 against the Seattle Mariners in the 5th inning. And we went on in true Toronto fashion to blow that game. I remember walking dejected with the rest of the Blue Jays fans to Union Station to take the subway home, and I noticed, as usual, at Union Station, a big line to reload funds at a Presto kiosk. But that morning, on October 8th, I had introduced credit and debit tap onto the TTC network, so I went right to the kiosk, I tapped my credit card, and the gates opened. I turned to the line, and I said, "Hey, credit and debit work on the TTC." No one moved, except one guy near the back of the line who went right up to the kiosk, tapped his credit card, turned back to the line and said, "Hey, he's right, it works." Nobody knew who I was. Nobody really cared who I was. But the point is, that morning, our government had passed policy that changed people's lives for the better. And they won't remember who did it years down the road, but it is an example that policy can transcend politicians. Share one more story. You have to go a little bit further back. I've been elected for 6.5 years, 2,317 days actually, if you want to count. But I remember as a rookie MPP, as a backbencher, you get to do something called a private member's bill. And that's where you pretty much get to put forward a proposal for legislation on whatever you want, really. And I didn't know what to put forward, and I talked to a veteran MPP, Todd Smith, who said, "Why don't you talk to this family, the parents of a young man named Garrett." And Garrett, to give you a little bit of the story, when he was 14 years old, he was at a soccer field with his girlfriend. And as 14-year-olds do, he was trying to impress her, so he started doing chin-ups off of the soccer goal. It tipped, fell on his head, and it killed him. It was terrible, and in North America, that actually happens to 2 individuals every single year. And his father and mother, lovely people, when I had lunch with them talking about maybe putting forward legislation to do something to prevent the soccer goals from tipping, very tearfully told me a story that just 2 weeks earlier, before that tragic accident, that Garrett and his father were in the hot tub. And Garrett, out of nowhere, asked his dad, "Hey, Dad, what's a legacy?" And his dad said, "Well, a legacy is something you leave behind when you're gone. And after a moment of pause, Garrett turned to his dad and said, you know, Dad, I want to leave a legacy. It was very meaningful this year then that a different MPP, because PMBs, they don't go through to legislation very often. They're very difficult to get passed for a variety of reasons. But this year, thanks to the work of MPP Rick Brzee, Garrett's Legacy Act became law, and no longer in this country, in this province, will you have soccer goals that are able to tip over, thanks to that legislation. It is a very meaningful example, again, of how policy will transcend politicians, because no one will remember who did it, no one will care, but the point is something important was changed. Now, I mention those stories because that's how I view arts and culture. Art also transcends its creator. It leaves us with a rich vibrance of life. It is something that makes our lives better every single day. And the economic development, which is important, arts and culture is a massive economic driver, $27 billion last year, is just a very nice consequence. It's the what. The art and the culture itself is the why. And I think it's very important that we remember how important the arts and culture is to that human existence, because without it, we're not very human at all. And as we continue to talk about the importance of the what, I think it's always important that we remember that the why is more important, that the creator often transcends the art. I don't pretend to be an expert. I appreciate the arts and the culture. I'm here to learn, and that's why I'm going to travel the province and get to meet each and every one of you and see how you enrich our lives in those 219 communities that receive funding from the ministry. But the work you do every single day is extremely important to our government. It is extremely important to me, and it is a true honor for me to be here with you this morning. Thank you very much.
Test. Can you hear me okay? You guys want the microphone or the built-in? We'll use this. Moving into the more informal part of our discussion, thank you for those amazing remarks, Minister. We want to, as you said, dive a little deeper into the arts and culture in Ontario. We will reference and mention a couple times in our conversation the Arts Across Ontario study, which everyone will receive when it's ready soon, not today. And it is, I'll just mention, it's a study by a third party, Nordicity, to measure the impact of the arts, culturally and economically, the two parts the Minister so articulately highlighted in Ontario, but also by region, so by municipality and region. So it'll be, I think, a fantastic report. The Minister, the first question about reach and diversity. The Ontario Arts Council, as I mentioned in my remarks, one of our mandates is to reach all across Ontario, every region. Thank you. And as well as every group. And I highlighted some examples. You know, Minister, from your time in this portfolio, but also your personal experience, you know, how and why does this reach and diversity matter to the Government of Ontario and the mandate for the Government of Ontario to serve all Ontarians?
Yeah, thank you, Simon. I think this works perfect. I think it's crucial. We forget how big our province is sometimes. It's got 2 time zones in it. It's can fit 14 European countries, and lucky enough to have been traveling the better part of the last 7 years in the job, getting to see every corner of the province from Dryden, in the dead of winter, by the way. It's really cold there. It's minus 50, no wind chill, all the way down to southwestern Ontario and Windsor and everything in between. And we're very lucky to live here, with its diversity, and not just in its people, but in its topography and all the beauty that it has to offer. And we need to lean into winter, by the way. I'm one of those guys who prefers minus 20 over the 35 and the humidity, but we're lucky to have those 4 seasons as well to be able to enjoy in this province. I hope that's not my wife calling to come home. But it's really in the people that I think the story of our province is told. You know, my riding is North York. It's just right next to this one, and you know, we're a perfect microcosm of the world. That's meaningful to me, that anybody from any corner of the globe can come here, choose who they, you know, be who you want to be, love who you want to love, worship how you want to worship. It's not, sometimes we take things like that for granted, and with some of the geopolitical instability we see around the world, it just reminds us how lucky we are that we get to enjoy that here. And it's a side benefit too. I can get the best Persian food next to the best Filipino food, next to the best Korean food, all the way up and down Yonge Street. But that's extra meaningful to me given my roots. My parents immigrated here from South Korea nearly 50 years ago with nothing at all. My dad's first job was actually picking worms off a golf course and selling them as fishing bait. And by the time he retired, through a lifetime of hard work, him and my mom employed 200 people throughout the greater Toronto area. They got to live that Canadian dream. And that Canadian dream wasn't just about economic success. It was about finding their expression through their culture, through their sort of identity and where their roots were from South Korea. That's a special place. We have so many people represented in each and every single community, and I think it's crucial that we continue to celebrate that, and the arts and the culture, well, the arts and the culture it creates, whether it's the experience of going to a friend's house and seeing a different type of furniture, or going to a museum like Aga Khan and experience what a different culture has to offer and understanding its history, appreciating it. I equate that to breaking bread with someone and getting to know or looking into their identity a little bit, and we need to celebrate that and continue to promote that. So it's one of those things that I look at from the government side, is we have to be able to enable people like you in this room to be able to provide those experiences, not just for today's generation, for generations ahead. I know sometimes it's a bit of a long answer, but I'll conclude with this one story. You know, my dad, when he did end up getting his first job after the worm selling, was a minimum wage in a convenience store in Guelph, and that was his springboard into you know, other things. But I got to go back to that convenience store 5 years ago in my travels, and I walked into that store. I just told them what I do and my dad's story, and the man there, he started tearing up. This gentleman from Afghanistan who told me that store he had bought, and he had put his 3 daughters through university, living the very same story that my dad did 40 years ago in the convenience store world. These things matter, and that's where we approach things from government. We just enable the conditions for success and the people in this room to thrive.
I appreciate the fulsome answer. Believe me, Minister, I won't be cutting you off today. A question that's on my mind, and I'm certain on the mind of everyone here, is the relative importance of the arts, and in government, and even in the Ministry of Culture and Tourism and Gaming. You know, there's a belief for some that art is a luxury. I think everyone in this room would believe that it's a powerful driver of social and economic development that connects us all. I really like this term, golden thread, that I've heard, which highlights how vibrant communities are built on strong cultural foundations. And emphasize that arts and culture are essential for our collective prosperity and resilience. What's your feeling around, you know, arts as a nice to have, which is a common perception, versus the opportunity that I think, either from personal experience or through your time as a ministry, how the government thinks about the arts sector?
Government thinks. Well, you don't want me to comment on how all politicians think, but you know, I can tell you how I think for a starter, and I think it's important that look, I think when you're looking at the arts, if you're looking at it through any other lens than the fact that this is very much about who we are as humankind, you're not looking at it the right way. I'm not sleeping very much these days, but I am looking at a lot of documentaries online and researching. You go down certain rabbit holes, and one of the rabbit holes I went down recently was looking at some civilizations from the past, and you get the truest sense of what people were and what they lived like through the arts that are left behind, whether it's their architecture or the paintings that you see, ancient civilizations, right up to what our history looked like 50, 60 years ago. And you see it in the eyes of the kids when you're visiting a museum as they're looking up at a piece silently. You see it in that starstruck moment when they're realizing, wow, there's something going on there that maybe you can't put it into the best of words, but you understand there's an appreciation, a deeper appreciation that there's something bigger than them here. It's an existential issue for me in supporting the arts, and I was honored when I was given this opportunity to be the one to be able to foster that. It's no coincidence. I guess your name's Foster, but I didn't do that on purpose. I think we have a responsibility in government to make sure that we continue supporting the arts, because it is very much a fabric of who we are. I see my role in this ministry that way, and I know that I will continue to fight for the arts and culture in this province at the cabinet table, at the caucus meetings, and beyond.
I told you he was an ally. He is. Appreciate that, Minister. Minister, Oh, yeah,
sure.
You got it. Sure. Oh, for the folks online, yes. Apologies. Minister, in your earlier remarks, you mentioned that the economic benefit is only one of the benefits, and I agree. But I do want to just talk about that for a minute. And you quoted the number, I hope I'm quoting the same number, or at least I have from 2022, that Ontario's culture sector generated $26.4 billion in GDP, 3% of the province's GDP, a figure bigger than Quebec and BC combined. OAC's funding directly contributes to $1 billion in economic activity annually. How does this align with your ministry's goals for economic growth across the province in every region?
Well, I think it's a powerful number that says exactly how important it is. And again, you're right. As we discussed, it is a nice consequence of something that is much bigger than just economic development, but it's at the same time an important figure to be discussing when you're talking about government. I mean, the machinery of government is massive, and the finances of government are very complex. And maybe this isn't something I should say, but if you want to compare the funding priorities in government, the Ministry of Health, perhaps rightly so, is the sort of the golden child. In a Korean family, it would be the doctor and a lawyer, and so on and so forth. Then you have other priorities, and sometimes, arts and culture may be seen as, the politician's son in a Korean family, where there's a little bit more you have to do to draw attention to the importance of it. That doesn't take away from the fact that it is important to continue to draw attention to it. So the numbers matter very much when you're in a financial conversation, to be able to demonstrate exactly what the economic benefits are for those perhaps at a Treasury Board lens or in a finance lens that may not be seeing the contribution of arts and culture through the people in this room in the way they see it. I hope I'm doing justice to explaining this, because you have to sometimes delineate the importance of the why and go back into speaking the language of the what. And so, that economic development, when it comes to the numbers, it's extremely important. It becomes extremely important to be able to demonstrate clearly. It becomes very important at the table when you're going through the budget process, because those are the numbers that the people who issue funds are going to want to see very clearly. So, the numbers do play a role in continuing to support the arts and the culture. You certainly can't go to the Treasury Board table and say, look at the kid's eyes when he's looking at this majestic piece of art. You do need to have that conversation. So it absolutely does play a role.
Minister, I appreciate that transparency, and I'm going to come back and dig in a little deeper to get, since it's just you and I chatting here, some additional advice. But just before I do, I want to talk about tourism, a big part of your portfolio. And there's a meaningful connection between arts, culture, and tourism. A recent study on arts and culture found that $11.4 billion was spent on arts and culture tourism in Ontario. We know from studies that those who travel to Ontario or around Ontario for arts and culture purposes stay longer and spend more. They may account for only 13% of travelers, but 30% of the spend. Again, since your ministry portfolio includes tourism, especially after coming out of the pandemic, does the ministry plan to do to support arts and cultural tourism to drive that economic impact?
You know, one of the best things we did at the Ministry of Finance when I was parliamentary assistant to the minister in 2020, when the tourism industry was devastated, right? It was the first hit, the hardest hit, and it was the last to recover. We introduced something called a staycation tax credit when, you know, the rules opened up enough to travel at least within our borders. It was hugely successful. I mean, people were getting out there exploring what the province had to offer, and I would be lying if I told you a politician came up with that idea. The best ideas, in fact, they rarely come from a politician. They come from the people out there. That idea came directly from a budget consultation and from people visiting and say, this is how we should promote tourism. And so, Simon, I won't sit here and pretend that I've got any answers to offer. It's really the people in this room and the operators who I meet with regularly that are going to be the ones to say, well, have you thought about this? Have you thought about, you know, maybe this incentive? You know, I point to the tax credits for the film and television industry as well. That's not something that originated from a government's table. Again, that was the industry saying, here, we think this could really promote the industry, and it has. I mean, there's great metrics attached to measures such as that. So I guess the answer is simply a call out to everyone in this room, and many of you I've spoken to about it already. You know, my team is here. Rebecca will hand out cards afterwards. Please give me those ideas. I think we all have a role to play in promoting that tourism angle, but we're a willing partner, and those ideas are going to come from you, not from me. Great.
I'm sure we'll take the minister up on that. Okay, the advice piece, because I know you're as I said before, thoughtful and open, and we have a room of arts leaders who like me need your advice. You know, as an entrepreneur, I'm so wildly impressed with the arts sector. The resiliency shown through the pandemic to survive, and then for many to find new opportunities for growth and to thrive. But, you know, we touched on, you know, the government has many priorities. Your advice to myself, to the arts sector leaders, for what we can do and might do to ensure that the arts remain a critical component of Ontario's economic policy.
It's a tough question, Simon. I don't know if I would call it advice. Look, I remember, I'll just share a little story about myself. When I was 8 years old, I remember, for those of you who grew up in North York, you might know of a school called Claude Watson. And it's a great school. In fact, I'm really proud of Willowdale. It's got a lot of arts heavy schools right in the riding. It's got Earl Haig. I don't know why I mentioned them first. They're my high school rival. I shouldn't have even mentioned them at all. Cardinal Carter is a great example. And Claude Watson, of course, is a very great art school. And they used to have this program, I don't know if they still have it now, called the Junior Claude program, which was a arts specialized program that you had to actually audition for, and I did that when I was 8 or 9 years old, and I remember my mom forcing me to do it, and you know, I know Royal Conservatory might be here. I did grade 10. I don't remember at all how to play piano, but I certainly, my mom loved it. She wanted me to be a concert pianist, by the way. It didn't pan out, but she wanted me to audition based on my piano skills. And they make you do everything in Claude Watson. So there was a sculpture portion, I'm trying to remember, this is a long time ago. There was a painting portion. I think I did sketches with chalk. And then there was my nightmare at the end of the day where they had a drama portion. And the instruction was, you know, act like a Christmas present being opened on Christmas morning. And I was a shy, chubby kid. This was a nightmare for me. And I remember leaving that audition and telling my parents, oh, please don't make me go to that school. Please don't make me go to that school because of that one drama piece. I got into that school, not on the drama and not on the piano, actually for visual arts. And yeah, I didn't even know I was good at art. I didn't know that was something that you could be recognized for. I think that story tells us that we need to be promoting arts at a very young age. I think this goes way beyond someone in their adult life starting just magically an appreciation for the arts or discovering how much that can be a meaningful path or how much it can contribute to your life. I think when you expose kids young to the arts, you start to create connections, you start to create experiences, memories, and opportunities that, as I said in my opening remarks, really tie into our identity as who we are. And I know it might be a little abstract, it would definitely be abstract at a Treasury board table, but you know, I think this plays a crucial role. And I wouldn't call this advice, I would just say, you know, I think government has shown that there's a willingness to look at programs that contribute to the cultural fabric from a young age. Maybe the idea is to, you know, look towards programs across different demographics, including the age as well as the other cultural traditional means that we go through. And I think the other advice that I'd give is reach out to your local MPPs. They take the local events very seriously, and I'll tell you, in my role, they are very, very, very vocal. I'm in big trouble on Friday night. I'm missing my little daughter's first Thanksgiving dinner to go to a South Asian Bollywood Film Festival event because my MPP for Brampton West would not take no for an answer. I think they're great resources in pushing your initiatives along, so I would take advantage of that as well.
I didn't want to be rude and right, but I just took a ton of mental notes. Thank you. And I'm going to keep you in the hot seat on advice for just one more question on that theme. You know, jobs. I was struck that the cultural sector accounts for 270,000 jobs in Ontario. It's more than industries such as real estate, auto manufacturing, forestry, and mining combined. Even I, a lover of the arts, I was shocked and surprised. Like this is news to a lot of people, a lot of Ontarians, a lot of people in government, and so I'm asking a similar question, but it's slightly different. For any other practical steps, Minister, you might suggest for how the arts sector can strengthen partnerships between the government and the arts sector to foster innovation. See, I used it as well. Foster innovation, job creation, and community well-being.
Yeah, I think so. Are there any other Koreans in this room by any chance, or you know, no, just me? Okay. Yeah. I think back to my childhood. And I can't speak for others in the room, but you know, I'll just be very blunt and come out and say this. It was never an option, I think, for my dad to say one day I'd come home and that, you know, I wanted to be an artist, for example, or I wanted to be a sculptor, or I wanted to be a dancer. And I think it's a bit of a stigma that may exist within certain, households. It's certainly, I think, within the Korean-Canadian community, it's something that is a reality. You were always told doctor, lawyer, at the bottom was politician, and then somewhere above that was in the arts. I think that's an important issue to talk about, right? I think that we need to do a better job of, as policymakers, of exposing the entire generations and families to what the arts can be and what a lucrative career it can provide and what a great job it can also provide outside of the other things that I talked about and the importance of the arts and being important to our identity as humans and all those other vital roles that artists play. What does that look like? I'm not sure, but when you look at the skilled trades, which faced a similar stigma, you had a government that moved on introducing skilled trades programs to remove streaming from the school system. You had all sorts of opportunities provided, I think, through the grassroots efforts of the skilled trades that have led to policy changes directly into the education system. I think that maybe there's a similar role to be played here for the arts. Why not? Why not have similar initiatives within the school system to promote the arts a little bit better and to change that stigma that exists? Because the reality is, I mean, whether you look at the skilled trades or the arts, there's very rewarding careers that, a lot of kids aren't exposed to and not an option at those young ages. So happy to work with you on that, with Minister Dunlop as well, and Minister Quinn. I think that continues into post-secondary education, but it's something that we'd be willing to work with you on as well, Simon.
That's great. Looking to the future now, you have a unique vantage point where you, both because of your ministry and your, it seems like very high energy level to do 50 meetings a day or events a day, a unique vantage point to speak with many arts organizations of all sizes in all parts of the province. And my question is about the future. Where do you see the greatest opportunities for growth in Ontario's cultural economy? Any emerging areas of focus or innovative programs we should be aware of and watching for?
It's a good question. We're seeing the demographics of our communities change daily, right? This is a very different looking community. I grew up in Rexdale at first. I was born in Etobicoke and then eventually moved to North York. Both those communities looked very different when I was a kid. When I was 8 years old going to St. Angela Catholic School in Rexdale, predominantly my neighbors were Italian, and it was my first exposure to a different culture. I would walk into their house. The art was different. The furniture was different. Some of it had plastic wrap on it that you weren't allowed to sit on. But they would say the same when they came to my house. Why do you only have one kitchen, for example? But the art was different. The furniture was different, and that was my sort of first exposure to a culture that was different. And then when I moved to North York, it was a lot more homogeneous. It didn't have quite that cultural difference for me, but I saw that change throughout my lifetime very quickly and in a very big way. And I think that's the new reality of our country, and I think that's a fantastic thing. You see that we have record immigration. I think the last year's numbers were pegged officially at something like 500,000, but I think that's low because for whatever government reporting mechanisms exist, I think they're lagging. But let's call it 500,000. That means, by the time 2051 rolls around, you're looking at a population the size of Ontario just in the GTHA alone. It's a massive population growth on the way, and it's not internal. It's not that many babies being made. Actually, birth rates are probably down. It is immigration, and it is immigration from all corners of the globe. Many of that coming right now being led by the South Asians, but who knows, right? These trends can change, and I think where I'm going with that is when we say diversity is strong here and diversity is our strength, you ain't seen nothing yet. Right? We are going to see a changing demographic in this country that is going to be way more than we have now. And I think we need to prepare for that policy-wise and in the arts and culture side of things, is that we're going to get to be the world, as I said, the United Nations. We are going to be an actual microcosm for the rest of the world, if we aren't already, in a bigger way very soon. Now, what does that look like for arts and what does that look like for government policy? Well, I think that means preparing for maybe non-conventional methods of investing into the arts. Like I mentioned the Bollywood Festival, for example. I was stunned when I actually looked into the numbers of attendees on this thing and where had it come from the last 10 years. It's going to be even bigger 10 years from now. We need to prepare for that. And whatever that looks like from the government side, whatever that looks like from the OAC side, or from those sitting in the room, maybe with a lens to that into the future to see how we can prepare, because it's coming and it's going to be fantastic.
It's exciting, I agree. The minister should, of course, have the last word on this. I'll close by saying any final thoughts you want to share with this community around our Ontario government support for the arts sector and how we can collaborate with you to achieve some of the government's and your ministry's goals.
I think you've, Simon and Michael, we had a great meeting, Danny and Jaspreet and Maria at your office just on Monday. My butt imprint is probably still on that chair in the boardroom. To you, I think it's just continue to do what you're doing. The fact that you're in 219 communities throughout this province with your reach, the fact that you don't take no for an answer on meetings, and I think that's helpful. But from my end, I think it has to be being available to you, to having a shared passion for seeing the arts continue to thrive into the province, and remembering that it isn't policymakers who make those types of ideas and the decisions and create the art and foster that art. There it is again. It's you in this room. And so, I'll leave you with a memory of sort of my family on how things just stand out. My dad moved here first to Canada from South Korea. He went back after saving a little bit of money 2 years later to find his wife, my mom, in Korea, and she's beautiful, absolutely gorgeous, still to this day, 71 years old, and she's stunning. My dad, not so much. I tell him that all the time. My mom had tons of suitors in Niagara Falls, and my dad wasn't in the top 3, and the only reason she agreed to marry my dad was because he's the only one that said, I can show you Niagara Falls. And in our house, growing up as a kid, there was a picture of my dad down on a knee beside the falls with a beautiful building in the background that still exists to this day in Niagara Falls. And when I drive by that building, I always look at it and think, I owe my life to that beautiful building. Creating memories, creating art, creating those lasting impressions, it makes us human. Please continue doing what you're doing. For my part, I will always be there to listen to you and to your ideas.
Please join me in thanking Minister Cho. Thank you, Minister. The Ontario Arts Across Ontario study will be available. It will have, as I said, that regional municipal breakdown for impact. And for now, thank you, Minister, and I'll turn it back over to Michael.
Wow. Thank you so much, Simon and Minister Cho. Those stories, yeah, one more time. I think you'll share some of my sentiments about the minister, that I'm looking around the room and I'm getting the impression that he gets us. He gets us. And really, it makes a big difference, Minister Cho, to have that perspective on the arts. Thank you. It's not a surprise, really, with two entrepreneurial minds and the broad possibilities in the arts that we covered so much just now, and what the arts can do. It's a fantastic moment that we have these two leaders in these two roles that are so passionate about the arts in Ontario. Le ministre Cho, directeur de portefeuille culturel au nom du gouvernement de l'Ontario, et Simon, nous guidons ici au Conseil des arts de l'Ontario avec une vision innovante, une piste d'avenir. That about wraps up our day today. For those of you who are here and want to continue the conversation, the atrium is open for you to enjoy, and there's cafe for refreshments. And of course, you can visit guest services if you wish to visit the beautiful Aga Khan Museum. Keep on sharing your impact stories with each other. As you heard today, please share them with us, the OAC. Please share them with the ministry. Each individual story is a part of Ontario's story, is what we like to say. And Ontario's story flourishes when the arts flourish. And with that, I will say thank you, merci, and miigwech, and have a great day. Thank you.